So, welcome everybody, welcome back to Under Ytan for another episode, a nice talk with some really interesting entrepreneurs and conscious leaders from around the world. Today we are joined with Peter and Jade Reed. Warm welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Daughter and father.
Yeah, I'm the father.
He's the dad and I'm the daughter. Some people get confused about his long hair.
It's the facial hair, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're here in Stockholm, found our way to Oscarsteatern. You've just been on stage together at the Wisdom.
I can't tell you how awesome that feels, honestly, being up on stage with your own child. It's amazing.
It must be an amazing feeling. Peter, you have a career behind you with Google. You've been a partner with Google Ventures. We try to, of course, pick your brains a little bit from that. We also speak a lot about Jade, your really interesting journey with Entrepreneurs First organization in the UK, where you really try to pick up the most promising entrepreneurs in the UK. And you already come far, haven't you? About 50 companies.
Yeah, so we've been going for 3 years now.
Yeah.
We've created 50 companies and they're now collectively valued at about $400 million. So not bad.
Not bad
It's
at all.
a good start. It's a good start.
Very good start.
We're right at the beginning of our journey and we're scaling up a lot this year and with this new fund that we have just raised.
Yeah.
But so far it's been really fun and we've had some good successes.
So they've been taking 30 people, individuals a year, for each 6 months, and now it's 100.
Yeah.
So that is a big scale up.
Yeah. So we went from doing, each year we would have a group of 30 to 50 individuals going through the program, 6-month program. And now just this year we're starting to do 2 groups per year, and each one of those groups has 100 individuals in.
Yeah.
So with that we're now going to be producing somewhere around 70 companies a year, which will actually mean that we would be the biggest producer of startups in Europe.
Fantastic. How about?
Yeah.
But we can come back to Entrepreneurs First. How did this entrepreneur journey start for you?
So actually I was on the Entrepreneur First program. Yeah, so I was on the second cohort. I studied biology and I was interested in health tech. I went through the program. I decided about halfway through that it was the very first thing I did out of university, and I was very young. I was 20 or 21, and at that point I didn't want that depth that starting your own startup would mean. I wanted to experience the breadth first, so I actually left the program and I went to work in venture capital for a bit in Berlin. And then I moved back to London, and now I'm working for the program that I was on. So that's how I got involved.
How great.
Yeah.
And you, Peter, again.
So I was a terrible entrepreneur. Just think about the honest answer to that same question. Co-founder of a couple of things early on, but one in particular that was just not very good. I mean, of course, we didn't set out to create something that wasn't very good, but it turned out to be not that great. But the real realization, I think, was that it involved taking a whole bunch of risks that I just wasn't prepared to take. No risks, nothing that other entrepreneurs don't already take. But by that stage in my life, I felt that I was taking on risks that weren't just me, but I was taking on risks on behalf of my wife and our 3 girls, and that just didn't feel right. They weren't choosing to take those risks. I was taking them on their behalf. Risks to health and relationships and the mortgage and stuff that entrepreneurs do all day, every day, and that just didn't sit well.
So how do you go from a pretty poor entrepreneur to a partner of Google Ventures?
So actually, being a terrible entrepreneur, so you were pretty poor, terrible. So it teaches you an incredible amount of respect for the people who do actually take all those risks that I was, not courageous enough to take. And as a result, I knew I wanted to be in the room with those people. Typically crazy 23-year-old entrepreneurs. And I was trying to figure out, okay, so how do I earn the right to be in the room with those kind of people? Because I love doing that. And being an angel investor, which is what I've been doing for 15 years or so now, is, I love that, because you put in a small amount of capital, but ideally you're doing it in, you're backing entrepreneurs who are working on something where you think you can add some value. And I think, as Jade pointed out in the talk that we just did, that the idea that you invest in is never, very rarely, the idea that the company actually becomes. So it's really not about, I can add value to that idea. It's that team. I love that team.
Yeah. They're going to do something great, no matter what.
And I'd love to be part of that narrative somehow. So that's how I ended up. And then from there, it sort of felt like a natural step up to do that in a more organised institutional way. And I think honestly, Google Ventures is one of the most interesting innovations in the venture capital space, in a long time. So I'm not there anymore, but I'm a huge fan of what they're doing and the people involved. I just think it's overwhelmingly good for entrepreneurs. Actually, specifically, it's overwhelmingly great for European entrepreneurs. And it's a different model where, even at an institutional level, it's not just about the money, it's about turning up and doing stuff to be helpful, and designers and recruiters and engineers and stuff that Google can provide in.
Just in brief, for those people listening out there, what is the structure, what makes it unique, the Google Ventures formats?
It's really the value add proposition, and I know every investor said, oh, we add loads of value. I can honestly say, I think Google Venture, I'm now objective because I'm not there anymore, so I can really say, they really do add value, right? So it is a big deal. You should ask me, by the way, you should ask the entrepreneurs that Google Ventures backed, but I'm pretty sure they would tell you that actually, GB does turn up and add value, and does introduce you to extraordinary people within Google and outside Google, and they do actually turn up with these practical resources of recruitment and engineering and design, and that's a big deal. I think it's an especially big deal for sort of slightly earlier stage companies.
Fantastic. And going back to the idea of falling in love with a person or a team, the whole idea, you have sort of a method, if you will, methodology that you follow, and the first step is actually to find those people, right? At Entrepreneurs First, before they have the grand idea, before they have the grand team, to take the leap and make the journey. How's your thinking on that? The logic behind that?
So basically, we thought it was a shame when we first set up Entrepreneur First that the very best and the brightest students, and at that time it was focused purely on students, were going into banking. If you were the best in your year at university, then you would go into banking. That's just what you did in the UK and in Europe. But in the US, it really wasn't like that. You have Silicon Valley that's growing, and people are moving from going to Wall Street to going to Silicon Valley, and also to thinking that creating their own company was a valid, not only a valid, but a valiant thing to do with their time. And that wasn't really the case in the UK. And I think that wasn't because the talent didn't exist and the people didn't want to start their own companies. They didn't really know anyone else who to start their companies with, right? So if you're an incredibly talented, motivated, driven individual, but you don't know anyone else, it's incredibly hard to do it by yourself. So that's why we wanted to create Entrepreneur First, to be the sort of Stanford of Europe, so a place where the best people can come together and meet other great people, because that's where, that's all that matters, is the individual, and the fact that they can build teams with other incredible individuals and then make something that actually makes a difference.
By the way, I think part of the magic and part of the journey that EF has been on was it started with there would be commercial people in the mix, and actually I think a lot of the rise in the success of the companies coming out of it correlates with the fact that generally there's been a sort of tendency towards individuals with strong, deep tech and science skills, and people like me, idiots like me, with commercials, you can come in later. And the real, combinatorial, innovative magic that happens when you put machine learning people in a room with drones experts, with roboticists, with AI, with machine vision.
It's amazing.
That's the magic.
Gotcha.
And let them go do their thing for 3-6 months.
So what sort of people or entrepreneurs are you looking for? Obviously the top of the class, we try to get them to stay out of consulting or investment banking. What sort of companies or people then are you looking for?
Yes, that's right.
I'm an investor, but I'll have to deal with my own stuff.
So we recruit software developers, mainly computer scientists, but also engineers, but all under that umbrella of deep tech expertise. So it used to be that we focused mainly on people who've just graduated, so who were young like me when I was in the program. But now we have changed that because we realised that actually could serve a much bigger audience, and this problem of not having a co-founder was shared by a much sort of wider age range. So now the kind of people we look for are a third of the graduates, so the people who have just come out of universities, a third PhDs or postdoctoral research students, and then a third young professionals, so people who have been in their careers at big tech companies for 3, 4, 5, 10 years. But it's really what we need and what we look for is first and foremost technical talent, so they can build really interesting products that other people can't build. But then also there's another extremely important category that comes along with that, which is the motivation to want to do it. Because as we touched on in the talk, it's so difficult being an entrepreneur. I mean, I know you were saying you have been. It's so difficult, and so it can't just be the best and the brightest, and we actually don't think that everyone should be an entrepreneur. We think that actually only very few people should be an entrepreneur. So for us, it's finding those people who not only have the talent, but also have the intrinsic motivation to go out and create something new.
Why you, why now?
Why you, why now? Yeah, exactly.
Why you, why now? That's true. You talk a lot about, obviously, the compassion. We can come back to this being also the framing for today, and the more sort of conscious business world that I think all of us would sign off on. You talk a lot about, besides resilience, like there's only a few that can make it,
absolutely.
1 out of 100 or whatever. But also compassion. What are some of the perspectives on those?
So for me, I think one of the saddest things that I see on the program is that the biggest cause of failure is that the founders give up. So it's not that they run out of customers or they can't get any customers. It's not that they can't build their product. It's not that they can't raise money. It's just that it's really hard and they burn out and they give up because there are so many easier ways to make money. And the thing that can set you apart in that instance is your ability to be resilient and bounce back from adversity quickly, right? And also thrive in that environment. And if you don't, it's incredibly hard to be continuously creative, have continuous focus, and create a sustainably different, a sustainably competitive product over time if you don't have those skills. So for me, a really, really important thing is just letting people know that you can change your ability to cope with stress, and you can change the way your brain works, and you can change how you respond in certain situations. And in doing that, that can make you a better entrepreneur, whatever that means.
We have a small tradition in these talks to also gaze a little bit into the future. Entrepreneurial life is, of course, a lot about action here and now and resilience. But speaking of resilience, we need to think about our planet, Mother Earth, as well, and take care of her better, and also be more conscious of what we do also as entrepreneurs. And I think both of you are onto that subject for sure. So as we gaze into the future, it's 2015 now. This year is again defining in many ways. It's been happening in Paris in December. If we get a glance into 2025 or 2030, what sort of world of business do you see, or do you wish to come to fruition?
I mean, you've got the scary science fiction, but maybe not science fiction worlds of all of our companies building stuff with AI, and the AI taking over the world. So that's, I guess, one sort of like a potentially gloomy view. But I think whether that happens or not, the kind of path from here to the future will be hugely shaped by technology's power to change everything that we do, right? So, yes, you know, there is the fear that by creating more technology, you could change the way people do their work now, and there's all these fears surrounding it. But actually, I think more important than the fears that could come in the future is the real excitement of the potential of technology, right? And the fact that entrepreneurs can create